Hello and welcome to episode 133 of Random Encounter, the RPG fan podcast. I'm your host, Robert Steinman, Pale Robbie on the boards. Very, very tired from the opening of school. Regular listeners will know that this is the time of the year where I can't get anything done for like 2.5, 3 weeks. So I apologize that we're coming out almost a month in between episodes. I am very sorry for that. But here we go. It is time for Random Encounter. And joining us today is Derek. Don't ask me about the ending of Danganronpa V3 Heemsbergen.
That is true. That's an accurate nickname. Today I was going to go with something more along the lines of, Derek, I'm the blade and you're the driver, Rob Heemsbergen. That's a Xenoblade 2 reference. But because you've been such a whiny little brat, see, I'm
Whoa.
I'm the driver and you're the blade. So
Why have I been whiny? What have I been whiny about?
you know what you've been whining about.
Should we talk about Xenoblade now or later?
After we've introduced ourselves, at least.
Okay, so we shouldn't just do a conversation between you and me about Xenoblade and leave
Yeah,
everybody
probably
else out.
not. Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't let that happen.
Okay, all right. So the person cutting in right there was Caitlin. I'm still playing Final Fantasy XII Argyros.
Yeah, I am. Literally, right now, I'm fighting a hunt right now because there's a lot of stuff to do in this game.
There really is. And how the hell did I beat that game before you?
Because I've been delayed. Because I'm streaming it. I'm losing time there, and I have other commitments that I was taking up, like 3 of my 7 days of the week. So it's kind of hard.
Rob probably also beelined it, yeah? More so than Caitlin.
I did a lot of the hunts, but I started to get a little tired of them, and like I generally reached that point of like, okay, I'm ready for this game to end. Like I had 40 hours of really good fun with it, but I was getting a little antsy, and I also think that just moving around in Final Fantasy 12 sucks. Like going from town to town and like talking to one person to get a hunt from another person to get the key that goes over here, that you talk to the mouse to get into the house that Steinman built. Like it just
Okay.
It is not that bad, especially
Can
with
we
fast travel.
appreciate the irony that the game that you're probably going to whine about, Xenoblade 2, its original version Xenoblade did that thing better than what you're complaining about right now? Like, let's appreciate Xenoblade did that whole go fight that monster system better than 12, and we're still going to bitch about. Sorry, we're going to bitch.
No. We've said that before on the show that I think Xenoblade was the better version of Final Fantasy 12, but the Zodiac, the Zodiac Age version of 12 is really, really good. And okay, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. We got one more person to introduce. Okay, we have a new person on the podcast with us.
Yay, new blood.
Blood. Okay, the new person is Alana. I probably should have looked up how to pronounce your last name before I try this. Higgs?
Higgs.
You've got to be kidding me.
Nearly. Higgs, yes. Well done. You can just, and if you look it up, it's anyway. But also don't ask me the end about Danganronpa V3 because I'm still processing everything, and I am sworn by embargo laws, and I'm tied up by the mastermind, by execution threats and everything. So.
Oh man, so dire.
I know. I'm in the worst position. It's not out for another like 9 or 10 days, and I can't talk to anybody about apart from Derek. So I'm just like, hey, can I talk about something before I break?
I know, right? This is one of those, like, you're holding onto a time bomb, one of those secrets that, because Danganronpa is one of those series that typically just goes absolutely nutso, and this one lives up to that, and it starts going in places where it's like, if I do not talk to somebody about this, I'm going to go crazy. And yet, here we are in the incredibly privileged, but still slightly frustrating position of like having the game pre-release, and it's like, who do we talk to about it? What do we do?
Yeah, I was in a beneficial position for the first 2 because I did it as part of a podcast and had the shared experience with a couple of other people. So this time is very difficult. Get onto that.
Right. So you guys have already ruined the schedule that I had set up for the podcast where we were going to talk about Destiny 2 before we talked about Danganronpa V3. But you know what? We might as well just go into it, right? We might as well just give the audience what they want. We've already talked about it. So I guess my question about Danganronpa V3, and I want to be respectful of you guys on embargoes, and I don't want to screw anything up. It was my experience with the first 2 games that, like, the cases and murder mysteries that were going on were kind of inconsequential to the main overall narrative of Danganronpa until like the 3/4 of the way through the game, and that was for both of them. Like especially in 2, where it's like we're on this island and we're not really sure why we're on this island, and we're not really going to talk about why we're on this island until it's time to talk about why we're on the island. Does V3 kind of does it have a similar structure, or is there more of an overarching plot from the get-go?
I would say, see, the thing is here, embargo states that we can't actually talk about anything past the end of chapter 1, and you can't even stream past the end of chapter 1. Like, it has the Persona 5-esque lock in place that prevents you from doing it through the PS4 interface. And but you wouldn't want to talk about anything that happens past chapter 1, because I feel like this one from the get-go really starts it starts playing with your head pretty early on, and anything beyond chapter 1 you want to experience fresh. That being said, I don't think it's too big of a spoiler to say that, yeah, it does kind of have a similar thing, where some of the cases may not seem as important to the overall narrative until you get towards the end, and then maybe some connections will start coming to light.
Okay.
But I would say if you enjoyed the first 2, you're going to enjoy 3, no question. It's more of the same in a good way, but with some surprising details that shake down a bit differently.
Okay. Alana, do you kind of agree with that assessment? Because it would be awesome if you disagreed with Eric and you guys could just fight.
Cool.
But I will say that their relevance doesn't, like Derek said, I think he alluded to the fact that they don't really come to light until the final third of the game, as with 1 and 2. It's only really the last 2 cases that really, why are we on this island? Who is the mastermind kind of thing. And V3 does a very similar thing, but it also ties everything together rather than just say, all these people died, but it's okay. It's sad that they died. And this one does something slightly different, but too far into it, because spoilers. But I was happy with the way it went for the most part.
As was I. The endings, I just beat it yesterday late at night, and I think Alana just beat it earlier today. So our thoughts are very much still gestating. But man, it's the ending, just like with the previous 2, it's going to make you think for a while, and I need some time to figure out exactly how I feel about it, which is tough when you're working under a deadline, but I'll do what I can. I will say that it absolutely finishes on a sufficiently thought-provoking note, you know? So it is once again a mystery until the end.
Yeah, despair is the word for Danganronpa, and is very much the word for V3.
Mm-hmm.
I need to play this game, but before I play it, I have to beat Metroid Samus Returns, because I'm playing that right now, and I love handheld games. What was that?
I just started that too.
It's really good, but man, my hands are cramped up playing that game, because they ask you to do a lot.
Yeah, because you have to hold down the L trigger to like aim in a lot of situations, and then you need to be able to you need to hit a lot of buttons in that game.
Yeah,
I was playing it in bed, like laying on my back, with my 3DS above me, and my hands started to cramp up after a very short amount of time, which doesn't normally happen. So I found myself having to sit up every time and like bend over it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mentioned to Caitlin on the pre-show, like, I really wish that I could just play Samus Returns with a controller. But, this is what we got, and I'm still enjoying it a lot. But it's not an RPG, even though you collect items and your hit points are
play a role.
numbers. You play a role. So my question is, I really debated long and hard about which version of Danganronpa V3 to get. And I decided to go with the Vita version because I've played those games on Vita. I really like the idea of that being a mobile game that I can take to work, and when I have an off period I can play it for a little bit. But when I played the demo, that sound mixing is terrible. Like, the voices are so low and the music and sound effects so loud that, like, I could not hear anything that was saying. If there weren't subtitles, I wouldn't have any idea what was going on. Have you guys seen any? I think you're both on PlayStation 4. Have you seen any of those kinds of problems on PlayStation 4 as well?
Well, I'm playing the Vita version, and I can confirm exactly everything that you've said about the demo. So, back when the Japanese version released in January, and I mentioned this in them, there was a lot of complaints about compressed audio and the fact that the characters sounded muffled, the sound sounded a bit describe it. But like you said, the voices are quiet as well, and it's just not very well mixed. And this has not been fixed for at least the review copy of the game. So all of the voices are extremely compressed, and they sound like they're muffled. So it's almost as if they're talking through a microphone, and you do have to whack up the volume a little bit. But it's not detrimental to anything too much, but it's just kind of if they knew there was an issue 9 months ago, then kind of why haven't they fixed it so far? But I don't know if it's the same for the PS4 version, Barrett, or...
It is, yeah. I wonder if they recorded this at the same studio that they originally recorded the Final Fantasy XII voice acting in. But
where everybody sounds like this, and they're all
wow.
talking as if they're going around, and they have to get the Marquis over here.
That bad?
Yeah.
You and the Marcus. It's, yeah, like you can go into the menu and adjust the individual balance of each track, BGM, sound effects, and voice, but I turned BGM down to half or less than half and voice volume to max, and some characters are still too quiet. Like the music will just play over their voices at times, and it's like, yeah, you can still make out what they're saying, but it's just weird because I feel like the things that people are saying are at the heart of this game. Like, you want to be able to hear those interjections. You want to hear their passionate rebuttals and stuff. So to have it drowned out by the music is like, what were you guys thinking? This is a crucial element of your game, and you should fix it.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I was a little worried about that after playing the demo. And
I mean, like, it's not insurmountable. It doesn't ruin the experience by any means. This is just the kind of thing that if we're going to be critics, we're going to critique that.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like a deal breaker because there are subtitles in the game, and you can turn on. And some people, I'm sure, are going to play with Japanese audio, so they're just going to read the subtitles anyway. But it is a major bummer, and Alana's right. They brought this up on message boards with the Japanese release. So it's like, okay, guys, you've had close to 9 months now. What are we doing here? And to go back to Final Fantasy XII, they did a lot with that audio for the Zodiac Age version. Like, it's still not perfect. I think Derek and Caitlin, you talked about that eloquently a couple weeks back. It was much, much better, but still has that muffled sound that is just a real shame in days where things are coming through so clearly. A sidebar, I was playing the new Dishonored DLC, which I'm hot and cold on it. There's some aspects I like and there's some aspects I don't. But like, audio remains one of the biggest problems with Arcane Studios games, where like I started an audio that I needed to listen to for a mission, and then I walked like 3 steps forward and I triggered an audio outside. And so now they're both playing on top of each other and going in and out, and it's like the sound mixing is just terrible. Like, it was driving me nuts. And so like audio is becoming such a important thing for me, especially when you're trying to convey information in the audio.
Didn't Prey have an issue like that too?
Oh yeah, Prey was really, really bad about that at times. Like, there were moments of like, I'm around the corner, down the hall, and about a half mile away from this person who's speaking, and it's like they're still in my ear.
Yeah, and you have to be like careful when you're playing the audio logs, because if you encounter a checkpoint where your guide or is talking to you, they'll talk over each other, and it's like, okay, at least you can replay the audio logs. But I mean,
it comes from that level of freedom with the Arcane games, like going back to that Deus Ex model of like, we're going to let you go around and kind of encounter things at your own pace. But when you put scripted moments in there, it actually kind of breaks. And I really feel like Mankind Divided, out of all of the Deus Ex, Looking Glass Studios games that have come out recently, I think Mankind Divided did it right, because there aren't a whole lot of scripted moments. The more scripted moments you have in these open games, the more it just breaks and just kills the entire immersion. I apologize. I did not mean to go off a rant there. Back to Danganronpa V3. So the demo.
Mm-hmm.
The demo is really, really weird.
Yeah.
In that several of the characters recognize that they're in a demo.
Yeah.
Is that how the game starts, or no?
No. The demo is a fun thing.
No way.
Okay, I was like, what in the actual hell is going on?
Removed.
Okay. Is the game still is the game still a little skeevy? Like, in moments where, like, I don't know, a female character falls down and you just see panties. Like, are we still doing that?
No, No, none of that, but it is still skeety at times. I have to go really why, and some of the male characters are just, they're not particularly like, there's nothing like panty shots or anything, which is, thank God for that. Like, we don't need any more of that anymore.
Yeah, there's not that, but there's like the one character, Miyu Iruma, the inventor. Her entire shtick is just like being incredibly vulgar all the time, and some of like, I was taking pictures with my phone of some of the stuff that she said because I was like, oh my God. I'm gonna send you some of these screenshots, Rob, because there were things written in this game that I have never seen written in a video game before. And
like, I mean, you know my wife. I don't think much is gonna surprise me. Like, I just don't.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, you know, I have a very foul mouth, especially when I'm joking around. But and I wasn't like shocked or bothered or offended by anything. I was just like, holy shit.
So they
went there. Yeah.
So they boldly went where no game has gone before.
In some ways, I think so. Yeah, I gotta like pull up.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to beat you fighting your father's testicles in South Park, The Stick of Truth. Like that. Like, it's really
okay.
hard.
Well, that's
you can't just brush that off. That is a boss battle in the game.
That's on another
but
level.
At least it's the context of South. Yeah, that's on the context of South Park. This is in the context of Japanese high school kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did anybody see It? Has anybody gone to see it yet?
Not yet.
Yes, I
It's not my kind of
yesterday.
It was so. It's fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. And the kids, like, the one kid from Stranger Things is in the movie, and he is just beyond foul-mouthed. And he has
perfect.
And he has a couple like howlers, like that end moment, Alana, and we don't want to give it away for people. That end moment was so good when he just like says, "I'm done with this." Like, yeah. But he speaks like a vulgar child, because I don't know if anybody knows this, but when children learn swear words, it's like every other word out of their mouth. So, you know, if they're speaking as high school age kids, I mean, the kids at my school, like when they think that adults aren't around, some of the stuff that will come out of their mouth, I look at them and I'm like, Jesus God, like, you made me blush. So I think that they're going for, you know, a style there, but I noticed a little bit with that character, Derek, that she was like that in the demo. Like a couple of times I was just like, huh, okay, you just dropped the F-bomb like 3 times in a row. All right, cool.
Oh, constantly in the game. Yeah. I think she's very funny, actually, but oh my God.
So I guess the question I have is, are fans going to like Danganronpa V3? Are they going to think that it's a fitting sequel to the franchise?
It's difficult. I think they'll enjoy it, but enjoyment's probably not the best word to use. So,
right.
I think overall I've enjoyed it, and if that gives anybody a chance, then that would mean that they'll enjoy it. But I've come out with lots of questions, most unanswered, some with answers. But overall, I'm a mix between hope and despair. So that's really what Spike Chunsoft are probably going for. So
right,
I'd say it's a success. That's
right. Enjoy is kind of the wrong word even here, right? Because, I mean, we play video games for a lot of reasons, whether it's to escape, whether it's to feel powerful, or to explore interesting themes or stories, or to reflect upon ourselves, like whatever it may be. But Danganronpa is one of those series that you have there's a balance between these moments of tension and mystery and the sort of feel-good moment of, oh my God, I just figured out the mystery, I feel so smart and in control, but then they are so keenly aware of the fact that the game revolves around the ideas of hope and despair, and they do things on purpose to make you as the player feel what the characters in the game are feeling. I would say with Danganronpa V3, the themes are hope and despair still play into it, but for me, the central theme is truth versus lies, because very, very early on in the game, you have characters who, like, if you played the demo, you'll know that in this one, a new mechanic is you can actually turn a truth bullet, which is when you're normally like refuting or agreeing with another classmate's statement. You normally would fire a truth bullet to say, no, you're wrong, or I agree with that. You can lie now. If you hold down your button, it'll change that into the reverse. So you have to actually lie sometimes on purpose to get closer to the truth, or to make people sort of come around to your way of thinking. And not only is that a new game mechanic, but the game leans very heavily into that as a theme, because it's just like there's one particular character who just lies constantly. Like, and you can't tell if what he's saying is meant to be a jest, if it's meant to provoke you, if it's meant to veil like some kind of helpful piece of information that he doesn't want to say outright. And the game just keeps going further and further into this whole truth versus lies thing. So, it's not like it is not a feel good game. Period. You're seeing people get murdered, and it's not a happy thing. There are moments that are funny or a little bit more lighthearted, but I think that's just the characters sort of trying to find any way to not go insane during the entire experience, So, is it enjoyable? I don't know. Is it compelling? Yes. So, that's my answer.
You guys are making the wait for this really, really hard. When does it come out?
26th in the US. So, yeah, I've got a whole 9 days of not talking to anybody about it.
Golly.
9 days.
Yeah. It leaves you questions, though. I think this one's a little bit more open-ended, which... see, the funny thing is, like, I feel like it's open-ended, but it is also conclusively the end of the series. That's the way I see it, at least.
Yeah.
So.
I feel like that was like a Metal Gear Solid 4 thing of like, I don't know, it could be the end, and I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Can't really say more because this game revolves around its narrative, and we cannot talk about the narrative not only for embargo reasons, but just because I don't think it should be spoiled. So
okay,
I think you like the first two, you should absolutely play the third one.
I'm sure we will talk about it more. We might even do a spoiler cast, which we've never really done one of those before, but we probably should.
Yes, I need to confess. I feel like a confessional. Just release all of my sins of Danganronpa. Like, take all this despair off of me, please.
God,
I need a cleanse. I gotta play something happy now.
You're playing Metroid. Yeah. That's happy.
Metroid makes me happy. It's a little creepy atmospherically, but I'm talking. I need to play when is that? Yeah, or the Katamari Damacy's creator's new game, like Watam. When does that come out? I want to play that.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about another game that has made apparently a lot of people happy, but I still don't get it. Destiny 2 came out.
Here it comes.
Destiny 2 came out.
There it is.
So I played very little Destiny 1. I played the PS4 demo when they did that weird thing where it just installed on your PS4 without asking you. It just appeared one day. That was weird. And I played the PC beta for Destiny 2, which it runs very, very well. And I was, it's very pretty. But I have zero interest in Destiny. And before anybody says but Rob, you love loot games. It's like, well, yeah, but remember, I didn't like Borderlands that much. I don't think a loot shooter works. I just don't. You go to Diablo 3, you are summoning spiders and corpses and melting people with, eldritch rays. That's really, really cool. In Destiny, you shoot people.
I mean, as much as I'm not a fan of Destiny necessarily, but I don't think that's a very grounded evaluation to make. It's just a difference in genre and taste. I don't care for shooters for the most part, but I wouldn't say that it doesn't work as a concept, as a genre.
Well, no. I think what I'm saying is that I find it not engaging at all.
Okay.
And the way I would articulate it is when I'm looking for a shooter, I really want to feel like I am in combat. I want it to feel interesting. I want it to feel spicy. That's the reason I gravitated so hard to Doom when it came out last year. That new Doom, it nothing else plays like that. When I play Destiny 2, I feel like I am just hurling numbers at people to watch health bars deplete. You get some unique powers here and there, but it's kind of just shooting a lot of the same enemy types over and over again in the head, and it's just not engaging for me. It plays fine, it's not bad, and it's got that Halo snappiness to the controls. It's probably one of the best controlling shooters you can play, but I just don't find that satisfying. I'm just really numb to the whole thing.
Here's the question then, since Caitlin is actually playing it.
Yeah,
Caitlin, can you tell us a little bit about how are abilities functioning in this one? Does it feel is there more diversity in combat than it may seem at first glance?
Well, I I only play the vanilla version of Destiny. I didn't play any of the expansions.
Oh, okay.
So I can't speak to how they change things up down the road. But it is very much like the same basic idea. You have your guns, you have your subclass ability, which you do unlock. There are 3 subclasses total that you can get access to as of right now, and you start with one and you unlock others seemingly at random. It's kind of weird. Like you get an item in a loot chest, and then that leads you on a quest to unlock your second and then later on third subclass. Yeah, it's weird. I think it's random, or it's like random with a certain probability. Like you should get it from a loot box around this point in time or whatever. I don't know.
Okay.
It's kind of weird.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, but it's the same basic principle of you have a subclass. It gives you your super ability, which you pull off by tapping both of the shoulder buttons at the same time, and you have other related abilities that say maybe change what happens when you're running, or change what happens when you melee an enemy, and they work differently and they have their own strengths and weaknesses. But it's, for the most part, it's I want to say it's nothing that you probably haven't seen from the original Destiny. With having said that, the subclass you start off with on the Titan class, which is what I picked, I don't remember from Destiny. I'm not sure if it was added in an expansion or if it's brand new. It basically makes me Captain America in that I get this super awesome glowy shield that I can throw at enemies, and it will chain from enemy to enemy, and then I can run at enemies and I can shield bash them for a limited amount of time, which I'm liking that a lot. I like it a lot more than the default skill that Titans had from the first game, which was to basically Hulk smash the ground. Like you would jump up and you would smash the ground and you would deal a lot of damage, but that was kind of it.
Wasn't there a class in it's like the Vanguard Mass Effect did that too?
Yeah. Sort of.
Because I played that too and I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I didn't like the first Destiny. I had major problems with it, and Destiny 2 is not perfect either. It's very much just a better looking, sort of improved version of the original. But I am having a lot more fun with this than I did with pretty much anything in the original Destiny. Like I'm having a lot more fun running around the areas. There's actual side quests to do instead of just like random go collect this amount of loot. From the original Destiny, there's actual banter between NPCs. There are actual NPCs in the areas for you to meet and talk with. And one of them is voiced by Gideon Emery, which immediately was kind of like, thank you. So, I mean, it's probably going to be one of those things where your mileage will vary. If you loved the first Destiny, there's no reason why you won't love this. It's more of the same. It's improved. It's more Destiny. If you didn't like the first Destiny, I don't want to say for sure that this is going to fix your problems, because ultimately it is still more of the same. Me personally, not liking Destiny 1, I've been having a good time with Destiny 2.
Okay.
But I can see how someone who just was really turned off by it would say, well, this is just like the same song, same dance on different planets and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Why should I bother?
So a refined version of an experience that hasn't been terribly altered.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. I mean, yeah, for better or worse.
Okay.
I am kind of happy with something they've done. I feel like the story in the first Destiny was horribly anemic. It was barely there. I don't even really remember most of it, except for a few bits and pieces here. And the story in Destiny 2, it's nothing that's going to be like held up in the halls of video game stories. It's still very kind of, go save the world kind of thing. But I was finding it a bit more engaging, and it was doing a better job of getting me into the game than the story in the original Destiny. And part of that is, I think, because the opening of the game is a lot more action-packed and dramatic than in the first Destiny. And I don't want to spoil it, although you may have already played the demo or, you know, watched on stream or whatnot. But I'm tentatively giving them a bit of a thumbs up. I look forward to seeing what they do with expansions down the line, because the base that they've created here is better than Destiny 1 in terms of story.
That's good.
That's good.
And they don't have to go back in after the fact and re-record an entire character.
Oof.
I mean, maybe they will, just as like a little Easter egg, like, gotcha. But
when it comes to Destiny's story, I would direct everybody to that really phenomenal Kotaku article where they went into the fact that they rewrote all of Destiny 1, allegedly, with 9 months to go before release.
Right, yeah.
Like,
Of course.
and the way that engine had been developed in order to make any change to the actual game, when they changed it to recompile the entire game after a change, it took about 24 to 48 hours. So,
jeez.
I mean,
Wow.
that game was a train wreck when it came out, just in terms of like everything that could go wrong with the game did. And by all accounts, they made a lot of changes to Destiny 1. I think that I still really struggle with a shooter behaving like an RPG, or an RPG behaving like a shooter, whichever one you want to say. Remember, I didn't like Mass Effect 1. I like when I put my sniper rifle over something and shot and it didn't take damage in Mass Effect 1, I was like, okay, I'm just not going to play this. Like, I'm not going to play a game that does that. Like, that's... You are relying too much on skill, and then you're making a dice roll in the background. I don't want to do that. And Destiny does not do that bad of a deal, but like when all of the damage is numerical based and it just, you know, the enemies, you're just knocking off health until they die. It's just not what I'm looking for in a shooter, but I think that they've made improvements. By all accounts, people are really happy with Destiny 2. That PC version runs like a goddamn dream. Like, it is amazing. It is gorgeous. Like, but, you know, I picked it up and I played it and I went, okay, it's more Destiny. If you like Destiny, I think you're going to be very happy. But me, I couldn't have been more turned off to it when I first played it. Like, it just... It is one of the most... It's one of the least engaging shooters I've ever played. And maybe I just would have to get really deep into the, you know, getting my light levels up and getting new weapons and stuff. But, like, the moment-to-moment combat feels good, but it also feels very fluff to me. And that's just not what I'm... My two favorite shooters of the past 10 years are probably Wolfenstein and Doom.
And Doom, yeah.
It's because they're both very viscerally entertaining shooters.
Here's a tangential question, I guess. You gonna pick either of those up on your Switch?
Yeah.
I think I am.
Yeah.
I think I am, and that's nuts. And I think that's I think that's all id Tech 6. id Tech 6 is incredibly scalable, like, and they have done like a miracle with that on PC. Like, Doom can run on just about anything at 60 frames a second. My old ass PC with a very outdated CPU can run it at like 120 frames per second on all.
120.
Oh, so my laptop could run it then.
And it looks
Wow.
brilliant. It looks absolutely brilliant. So I think id Tech 6 is, you know, Bethesda really wants to double down on the Switch. Part of me wants to buy Skyrim on the Switch, even though I know how bad of an idea that
Don't
is.
do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to play it like 4 times. And then
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, oh yeah, it's Skyrim. Oh yeah.
To this day, I've still never played more than maybe like an hour and a half of Skyrim.
Yeah.
It makes a really good first impression. And then you're like, and it's Skyrim.
Does it, though? Because that's why I stopped playing. I was like, nah.
It's not my cup of tea.
Yeah,
I mean, at least Bethesda's putting in a lot of Switch work. But yeah, Destiny 2, I don't know. I had a debate with my friend. We were talking about getting a game to play together, and instead of getting Destiny 2, I bought a $6 copy of Resident Evil 5 for each of us on PC, and I'm like, oh, we're just going to have a ball with this again, because we played it back when we were both in college, and we just ripped on the game the whole way through, even though it is a lot of fun. Like, we're just going to do that again. Although to get that running on my PC was an absolute pain in the ass, and Capcom needs to be shot for what they did. The game still uses Game for Windows Live for the initial launch. Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you have to download a fan-made fix to get that version working.
No thanks.
Yeah, no thanks. Like, I got it working, but that was a long night, and I'm a little mad at Capcom right now. But anywho, Destiny, it's Destiny.
It's Destiny. You play a role.
You play a role. I have a game I want to talk about because it's a demo that was just released on the Switch. And
Oh yeah!
Yes,
Surprise,
yes.
surprise! Right?
so
Yes.
coming in our running for worst titles of the year, but
It's not that bad.
Octopath Traveler is a really bad title.
You have 8 protagonists.
They made
have a
up
path to
word.
travel.
They made up a word for their
You're
title.
Destiny.
That's like a requirement with RPGs or video games in general.
my
If you make up words.
Oh my sweet God, you guys give Square Enix the biggest passes.
When they do stuff right.
Okay, the game is good. Give it a different title. Just call it Saga Frontier 3. You know they're gonna do it. You know they're gonna call it Saga Frontier. You know.
I wonder because it feels very
That's
much
a
like
working
a saga
title, though,
game.
isn't it?
Right?
It is
Yeah.
a working title. It is a working title, but it's just okay. So Octopath Traveler, the demo kind of stealth released on Switch. They had their Nintendo Direct, and everyone was like, "Buh." It's the very gorgeous HD 2D art game that kind of everybody stopped and looked at when they first showed it off. Very much like 3D Dot Game Heroes mixed with Final Fantasy VI. That's kind of the best way I would describe. And so the demo has 2 characters. We have Primrose, the dancer, and what is it, Alberic, the knight?
Yeah. Or Ulberic, I don't know how it's pronounced.
Yeah. I played Alberic first, and that was very enjoyable. And this game has a real Bravely Default / Radiant Historia feel to it, where the combat is more than just attacking enemies over and over again. You whittle down their defenses, and then you can boost your attacks. You get a boost point every turn, and you can use, I believe, up to 3 boost points, and just all of a sudden your damage goes from like, oh, I'm doing 15 damage to like 1,500. And
Yeah,
that's like,
it's
Go
like
ahead,
a very interesting sort of sideways evolution
Yeah.
of Bravely Default's combat. Instead of stockpiling turns, you're stockpiling more or less, damage modifiers. And I rather prefer that because I found that, as I've talked about when we talked about Bravely Default in second way back when, I often felt like in those games, combat would amount to you just spamming all 4 of your turns for all 4 characters and hoping that you could take the entire enemy party out at once. This, I think, means that you're not spending quite as much real, literal time inputting your commands and doing all that. You're just sort of playing with a similar mechanic of stockpiling and not having to wait for all of your commands to execute and like wait for all of your enemies to attack over and over. So yeah, I wouldn't know if I would call it necessarily an evolution, but it's just sort of a different version of that. And I think it works pretty well from what I've seen. So
yeah, and it it's kind of a requirement to do that boosting. Like the first couple battles I got into, I was really like, wow, I'm hitting these enemies over and over again and they're not dying. And then when I saw the giant jump in damage that would happen from just a couple of boost points and how quickly that would kill foes, it really makes the battles into a little bit more of a puzzle. Like, how do when you break through an enemy's guard, they now lose a turn. So you're kind of juggling enemies a little bit, like, okay, I'm going to make you lose a turn, and when you break through them, they not only lose a turn, they also get a serious reduction to defense.
mm-hmm.
So that's a chance to really hurt them. I think I'm a little worried the same way I was with Radiant Historia, where I'm like, am I just going to be doing this for 40 hours? Because I think I'm going to get a little tired of it. But the good point is, later on in the demo, you can get the other playable character that you didn't select, and that seemed to open up a whole new set of options. Like, I didn't feel so constricted. It's kind of like whenever you play a JRPG with one character and it's a 4-character party, it always feels really weird. it's like, okay, I'm going to attack, heal, attack, heal, attack. Oh, should I heal now? Like, that's how I felt playing the demo. But I think when you have a full party, it's going to allow for a lot more flexibility.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
I really do get a deeply Saga vibe from this. Either it feels a little bit more like romancing Saga on the Super Famicom, like 1, 2, 3, which unfortunately we didn't get those. But especially the designs of the enemy sprites and the character sprites, the way that characters are sort of the little diminutive sprites, and then the enemies are these huge, weird, like almost like non-realistic, exaggerated proportions kind of thing. I'm really
like Primrose's boss reminded me of like a Persona boss almost, with how larger than life he is.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Like he's just gigantic and extravagant, and he's holding this glass of wine, and you're like, wow.
He's a real piece of work too. I played Primrose's story. I haven't even actually finished it yet, but I've seen a screenshot of him. Yeah, Primrose also, first of all, it's heavy. Like Primrose's story, it starts out on a really heavy note, and second of all, I feel like the writing is really good so far. Which is not something that I can say about Bravely necessarily, because I think the Bravely series falls back on tropes and stuff. But this is very much like, right away, I'm like, oh my god, I'm hooked on this. I want to know what's going to happen. And it's delivered with finesse. It feels like well-written, sort of fantasy-grounded dialogue.
Yeah, it's maybe a step or two down from the Final Fantasy 12, like we're going to go full bore into that kind of flowery language. Mm-hmm. The 8.4 guys were pretty hard on the game's localization and voice acting, especially.
Octopath?
Yeah, I didn't feel that quite as much. I enjoyed what I was playing. I think Alberic's story seems a little cliched, but I hope it kind of grows into something. And I think from reading the little bit about Primrose's path, I kind of hope they do subvert it a little bit. But even if you had 8 characters and one of them was fairly generic, I think that's okay. They're looking for feedback on the game. They seem to be taking kind of a similar approach to Team Ninja when it came to Neo. I would make the suggestion that they need to work on the menu font size in general, because playing that in handheld mode, I was like, I'm going to put the screen right up to my face to see exactly what I'm looking at. And I actually think Japanese developers are pretty bad about that in general. Like, remember Final Fantasy 15? Like, those menus are terrible. Like, the font they decided to use was like 8 times New Roman. Like, what the hell? And I had to, like, at one point I had to get up off my couch, walk to the TV in order to read what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Like, so I think they're asking for input. I have no idea when that game's going to come out in 2018. It seemed to have a lot of polish, but then again, so did Neo, and it was over a year later until we got that.
Yeah.
So it could be a ways out.
I am really glad they're collecting feedback, though, because there were already a few little things. I think either Caitlin or Alana, I saw one of you talking about this on Twitter about how the voice acting usually finishes before the text box finishes scrolling, which is kind of a weird, tiny little issue. And then also, like, the battle transitions are really jarring.
Yeah, we were talking about it on Slack, I think.
Oh, Slack. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they need, like, an option in the menu where you can change the speed that text animates, or even possibly turn off the animation altogether. Because I found myself hitting the button to just auto-display all the text all the time, because it's moving really slowly.
Yeah, it is.
And probably to have it time better with the voice acting, but it doesn't work all the time. It's just like, I don't know. But little things like that, like I would appreciate having health bars at least, if not HP totals for enemies, so I can properly gauge how much boost I should be putting into an attack.
Right, like, that's crucial, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
For a time like this, yeah.
Oh crap! You knocked it out of my head. There's one thing that was really
the music's great.
Yes, the music. Oh my god,
amazing.
I need more.
Oh,
and it's amazing. I don't know this composer very well. I was looking at what he's done, and I don't even recognize most of what he's worked on besides Grand Blue Fantasy.
Oh,
so
wow.
he did the animation, the anime version of the soundtrack. He didn't do the soundtrack for the game, I don't believe.
Did anybody else notice that the encounter rate is actually super, super low, but you seem to get a lot of experience per battle?
Yeah, I think they did a good
I
job
like
balancing that. Yeah.
After all the Dragon Quest
That's
games I've been
good.
playing for the past 2 years, I really, really liked that. Like,
I
oh,
think-
I leveled up.
I think you have to grind a little bit more on Prim's path because she has just that one dungeon and then you have a boss fight. And if you go straight through and you don't level up and buy some new equipment, you're going to get your butt kicked. But then they compensate by making the enemies give you a lot of experience in that dungeon. So it's nice. And Ulbricht's nice and level. You can pretty much just explore his areas and be in a good position for the final boss. But it's also it's nice to see there's a bit of a challenge with the fights.
Yeah.
Like and part of it is you're at the beginning of a story, so you don't have access to lots of items, and no one has healing magic yet. I presume that's going to be probably different characters who would have that. So you feel a bit more vulnerable, and you have to take battles with a bit more of a strategic stance. I like Ulbricht's final boss. I kind of squicked by the skin of my teeth. I was running out of items, and I was happy that I beat him when I did, but I could easily have died and had to try again. And I did wipe with Primrose's boss. I had to go back and grind a little bit, but I mean, I'm actually kind of happy that it's a bit challenging and not just a face roll kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Finding battle balance is hard. Also, just because we mentioned the composer, I looked it up. His name is Yasunori Nishiki, and he did some composition for Gravity Rush 2, but Octopath Traveler is his breakout role. So he could be somebody to keep an eye, or I guess ear on in this case.
It's really good music.
The only other thing about what was that, Alana?
Oh, don't worry. I was just saying the music was fantastic.
Okay. I think the only other thing that I have to say about Octopath is I look at Octopath and then I look at the JRPG Factory game that's coming up next, Lost Sphere.
Lost Sphere, yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, I feel bad for those guys. Because, like, that game just looks... It looks downright bad compared to... Like, Octopath is striking and, like, I'm totally on board with it right away with its art style. And like Lost Sphere just looks really, it looks like a damn mobile game next to Octopath.
Well, I find that really interesting. Not so much about Lost Sphere, but about the art style of Octopath. I don't really go for the old, classic style graphics. It's hard for me to get into games that were, sort of a little bit before my time. It's why I haven't played a whole lot of the earlier Final Fantasies. But strangely enough, I love what they've done with Octopath. I think that's kind of how I want, ye old SD kind of style games to be presented from now on. Like, can we get like Final Fantasy VI like that, please?
Oh, that'd be cool.
Oh, could we, please?
That would be really good.
Yeah.
Did you play?
I mean, I love the classic nature of the sprites, but I love what they've done to the environments to make them feel more alive. Things are moving, grass is blowing, and you see birds flying in the background in the sort of a track movie that plays on the title screen. So
I think
I love it.
They've got good depth, I think, is what you see, because you're moving. Yes, you're moving like up, down, left, right, but in a classic 2D JRPG, which I still love, and very much want more games like that as well. But those are like top down, so you're seeing from a bird's eye perspective. Whereas this is almost like you're in a theater sitting in front of a stage, and you can see the character moving in depth, like back and forth in space, rather than just up and down. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, it looks really, really good. It also made me realize that I would love another 3D dot game Heroes. Like I would love another.
No.
You're wrong. That game was great. That game was
yes,
great.
No, that game gave me a headache.
Did it really?
Yeah, I couldn't play it. I hate voxels. I think they look ugly and chunky, and it works for me in Octopath Traveler because they're mixed with the 2D sprites. But if it was like all built in that voxel style, I probably wouldn't like it.
I loved 3D dot game Heroes. Like that game was rough around the edges, but I would have loved it. It was very like out of nowhere from software. Like, oh, this is great, and then they turned into the Dark Souls factory, and I'm like, I'd really like you guys to make another one of those, because imagine that on Switch. That'd be kind of neat, and especially after seeing Dragon Quest Builders 1 and 2 on Switch. That
Yeah,
could
just
be
play that
really
instead.
No, actually, I think I liked 3D Dot Game Heroes more.
Really?
Because did you get to Act 3 in Dragon Quest Builders? That's when that game just decides to like
Is
crap
that
itself.
the poison area?
No, that's Area 2. Area 3 is just like all combat all the time, and you have to have like a party of those big strongmen characters, otherwise you won't kill anything, and they are dumber than a sack of hammers. I almost didn't review it because I didn't want to beat it. Like I was actually ill. I was physically ill playing that section of the game.
No.
I need Dragon Quest Builders 2 to not do that again. Like, don't double down on your crappy combat unless you're gonna like fix it. Sorry,
You're hoping. Yeah.
I didn't mean to get angry. I'm not
sure
angry.
You did.
Not angry. I'm not angry.
You brought it up for a reason. They'll fix it.
It's not a random encounter if Rob doesn't get angry about something.
I know, but Octopath Traveler does look really, really good. I'm really excited to see more of it.
And I also just was excited that in the Nintendo Direct where it was announced that there was a really RPG heavy presentation, which like more so than in the past. So it was nice to see. We had Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, which is like, I'm so on that. I get it probably. Am I really excited for it? Not really. But we had that. We had Mario Odyssey, but then we had Octopath and Xenoblade, and so 3 of the 4 games that they showcased were very much like turn-based, or not turn-based, but Japanese RPGs. So it was nice to see that they're renewing their focus on that, and that they recognize that finally there's an audience who wants it. Because if we all remember, there was a time not too long ago when they were like, do people even want RPGs? I don't know. And they passed on Xenoblade Chronicles 1 for such a long time in the US because they thought that we didn't want it. And we were like, no, actually, we do want these. We just want them to be made well. We don't want Kemco RPGs.
So you brought it up, so we might as well talk about it. All right. Let me be very, very clear with Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I am really excited for it. I am going to buy that special edition as soon as it's available, and I think it's going to be good. I really do. Every time they've shown it, however, I feel like they're going out of their way to make it look bad. Like, just the way it's presented, the way they talk about it. It's probably a very, very difficult game to talk about, but like between the demos that they showed last year at E3 over the summer, the character designs basically being trash. I'm just
they've actually, well, not to get into it too much, but they've made changes to the actual in-game assets ever since the E3 build. If you look, people have taken some really interesting comparison shots of the E3 trailer and then the one that we just got in Nintendo Direct, and a lot of the models have been adjusted and they actually look quite a bit better. Okay. I mean, they still have like the very Moe-ified look to them, and you can't change the base design so much. But there was that one screenshot that was circulating of Rex, the main character, who's like running with his sword and shouting, and his face is all like weirdly round and glowing and doesn't look right. And they've made some changes to that. It's still similar, but it looks a lot better in my opinion. So I'll link you some screenshot.
Does the female character still wear a thong Band-Aid?
Yeah, they haven't really changed the character designs. Yeah.
Yeah.
They haven't touched Betsy anymore as well.
Made them look a little better.
I think between that and me not really understanding the drive, whatever system they're going for, where like she's basically like feeding energy to Rex the whole time. Maybe it's going to play real great when I get in there, but like I feel like whoever is doing the communication for this game is like actively trying to turn me away from it. Like I don't know. Something is really not right. Maybe I just got to get my hands on it and everything will be fine.
The combat system does look a little complicated, and the UI is incredibly busy, and that is possibly a downside. But disclosure, I have not been paying a super amount of attention to how combat works because I kind of want to experience it for myself. This may very well be one of those kind of games where it's really hard to demo what combat actually feels like to explain what you're doing. It may feel a lot more natural when you're actually playing it and once you're used to what you have to do. It looks pretty complicated right now, but that's because we don't know what these new systems are. It looks like you can control when your allies use certain skills, sort of, I guess, like how you would, do in Xenoblade X, where you would trigger soul voices and they would respond. But it looks like it's a bit more, you can like directly say, okay, use that skill now. But it's hard to tell from what they've shown us exactly how it's going to feel, and I'm withholding judgment until I actually have it in my hands and I can say, okay, that works or not. So right now it's mostly just, ooh, looks pretty, ooh, sounds awesome, ooh, I can play it on the go. So my biggest concern at the moment is whether or not the frame rate drops that we've seen are going to be significant. And if they are, if it's going to be mostly relegated to playing docked, where the resolution is higher versus handheld, sort of like how Zelda had more issues when you played it docked because it was at a higher resolution than when you played it on the handheld.
Yeah. I really want it to be good. I'm really excited, and Caitlin, you were right. It is coming out this year on December 1st.
Yes, let it be known. I had the faith.
I still don't think it comes out December 1st, but that's just me. I think it's delayed last minute because we've seen that happen.
Rob, I'm going to take a picture on December 1st with me holding my copy of the game, and I'll have a little note that says, it came out.
Okay. I hope you're right. I really do want it to be good. I just think that, something is not sitting right with me with that game. And maybe I avoided all of the press coverage for Xenoblade Chronicles back in the day. Like, I barely knew a thing about that game until John was like, okay, we need somebody to review it. And he asked me to do it. And I was like, okay, I have no knowledge with this is great. So like maybe if I had seen that game leading up to release as well, I would have had similar thoughts. Like, I don't know.
There was barely any press coverage.
True.
For that game.
Right.
True.
Yeah.
At least in America anyway, there wasn't a whole lot of build-up because they didn't really want to release it for the longest time.
Yeah. It looks interesting. Derek, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think there are definitely things to be concerned about, and you guys brought up all the things that I would have, and my main, so like the visuals and stuff aren't necessarily my cup of tea, but we'll see how it looks in motion, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing that I'm worried about is the drive system, now that they finally explained it a little bit more. I really, really do not like the generic looking blades that you can summon. Like, that just, something about that just like, that totally turns me off, because it's like, if I'm going to be running around in this big, beautiful world, I want to have interesting, engaging characters who I've developed connections with and who continue to grow throughout the story. I don't want to run around with a faceless blade who just looks like a generic character model.
But everybody loved Fi from Skyward Sword.
No, and
that's
the fact
all
that
I think when I watch. That's all I think when I see
the fact that they're generic too, and because they said that there are some that you can get that are rare blades that have unique appearances, like the one that they showed off. But for me, it's like, why would I want to use anybody other than the storyline characters? Like it's in any RPG where they give you a cast of core characters, but then you can recruit generic faceless NPCs. I never ever use those.
So why would you want to? Yeah, I don't really see the appeal of it. Just like you said, the having characters are the driving force of the story. So of course I would like to use like sword number X or whatever. And I suppose it's their way of trying to compromise between a weapon system where you want to buy all the weapons, upgrade the weapons, but have a cast of characters. But they just happen to be in the same pool because you have the blade system and the drive system. And I don't know how it's going to work in the finished product. And I think I'm as worried as you about it. And I don't really like the look of. It's funny that Rob said that they look like brought up Fi, because that's exactly what I thought when I saw the trailer. I thought, oh, look, it's Skyward Sword again, exactly what I wanted. No, it isn't.
Yeah, really nobody wants Fi. Nobody does. So yeah, I'm just concerned about that, because the character designs in this game are already putting me off a little bit, and to have even the main characters being pushed aside for these even more generic looking blades is like, no. I don't want that. I don't want to run around with that. So hopefully that's something that, maybe we do have the freedom to not use those depending on how strong they are. Or to, maybe there's like a glamour system or something. I don't know. So we can make them not look like crap. But I guess that's very subjective, but that's a major concern of mine.
No, I think I agree. And I think with everyone else has brought up all the visual problems and that, I feel like this is stuck between Chronicles, Chronicles X, and like Xenosaga's art style shoved in the middle. I'm just kind of not really sure with the character designs and the facial movement and things like that. I'm
Right.
not enjoying how anime it looks. I'd kind of wanted it to be in the middle of the other two, the first two games, but I mean, I'm really excited for it because every time I see the environments and the fact that we are again walking on not dead gods, but this time are they called giants? We're walking on moving giants,
Titans.
the Titans. That's right.
Yeah.
So we're now walking on giant beings. It's like, oh yeah, this is like Xenoblade Chronicles, exactly what I wanted. But then look at other things, and it's not mixing together like perfectly at the moment.
Right.
But say we've still got a couple of months, and as far as I'm aware, most of the builds are quite finished. So I suppose it's just going to be a case of getting a hands on them and seeing how things play out now. But
Yeah.
I'm excited, but
I'm
reserved.
I'm having an epiphany right now because Alana bringing up the Xenosaga art style. You are 100% right, Alana. Like Xenosaga episode 1 is like all over this thing. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, wow. I'm an idiot. I didn't put that together. Like,
I haven't even played it. No.
I feel like Xenoblade X is closer to Xenosaga's art style than this is. This is maybe closer to Xenosaga Episode 3, maybe,
Ooh.
where they kind of married the more realistic styles of Episode 2 with the more anime style of Episode 1. But I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah.
we all hope it's good. None of us are
Right.
trying to be negative for the purpose of being, provocative. Like, we want it to be good. I just think that, it just needs to come out at this point. Like, there's so many up in the air questions. Maybe we get our hands on it and it plays amazingly well, and we're all happy. It could very well be.
Yeah. I hope it comes out good.
I will be happy, Rob. I will be happy for you if I have to.
I'm gonna get it day one regardless. So.
I mean,
of course.
there's a bunch of RPGs that I've yet to finish. I still have P5 on my backlog of
I
shame.
don't get how you still. Okay.
I just bounced off it. Like, I really liked it, but I think it was just time commitment and everything, and then I just got distracted by other games, and I don't know. I bounced right the hell off of it. I think it's because that game plays a lot like the other Personas, doesn't it? It does.
Yeah,
does.
pretty similarly, yeah.
But like, you guys know me, I tend to get a little bored with the third or fourth iteration of a similar thing. I mean,
It's also like 2 dungeons too long. That's
It
for a
is,
different discussion.
Rob hasn't even gotten that far though. So
I haven't even gotten that far. So
Wow.
like, I'm guessing that's probably part of it. And I also just wasn't feeling as close of a connection with those characters as I felt in 3 and especially 4. I just wasn't. It's not that they were bad. I love Morgana. Morgana's like the best. But I don't know. I need to just sit down and do it again. Now that I've got my backlog worked out a little bit, I think I can. If I'm going to do it, it's got to be before Xenoblade. Like, I just got to get it done.
Hurry the hell up. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So Xenoblade Chronicles 2 looks good. What is this? We've never talked about this series. What the hell? What the hell is Wise? We've never talked about this before.
It's actually Y''S. Wanderers from Weiss. Yeah, no. We've talked about these before. You know
Yes,
it.
we have.
You're just
This is Ys, the Oath of Felghana, right?
Rob.
Try again.
No, is it Ys
going.
Origins?
I wish.
No.
I love East Origin.
Third time.
Ys
Good try.
7.
Almost. You're really close.
Well, kind of. That came out on PC recently.
It
Yeah,
did.
it's before 7 chronologically.
Chronologically.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
No, wait a minute.
Wrap that
wait a
around
minute,
your
wait a
brain.
minute. Are you telling me that Ys 8 is before Ys 7 chronologically?
East 8 is
Yes.
before. Yeah, it's before what? Is it 3 and 4?
Is it
Or
five
2 and
Isn't-
3?
Isn't
between?
isn't 7 the most recent
I'm
chronologically?
Yeah.
in
holding
terms
up
of-
2 middle fingers right now.
Yeah,
This is all I'm doing.
it is.
I'm pretty
Like,
sure it's
you've
5,
gotta
8, 6, 7.
You've got
Yeah,
to
it's-
be kidding me.
Yeah.
No.
I wish
we're
it
not
was
kidding.
the most recent, but no, we're not kidding. Well, I guess we haven't really talked about East 8, seeing as it's been a month since our last episode, which I'm not getting on your case, Rob. We've all been busy. Don't cry. So East 8 Lacrimosa of Donna came out recently. It's on PlayStation 4 and Vita. There's a PC version as well that has been delayed indefinitely as of this recording, but hopefully that makes its way out soon. Both Alana and I played it. I reviewed the PS4 version. She reviewed the PlayStation Vita version. And yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, if you're listening to this episode, maybe you've already seen both of our reviews up on the main site. If not, rpgfan.com, go check the review section. I think overall we both felt pretty positively about it, and we had similar takeaways. But
Pretty much.
yeah, the PlayStation 4 version of the game does have some additional content that the Vita version doesn't have. The specifics of which we don't really need to get into too much right here. But yeah, so it's sort of like your typical Ys game in that it is a very fast-paced action RPG. Combat shines through, as does the soundtrack. Those are like the two main things here. It feels like previous Ys games. It just feels great to run around, to traverse. This one, I would say, even more than ever, I think the traversal is the fastest in 8 than it's ever been. Wow, I can't talk today. Faster than it's ever been. And, you've got like dodge rolls. You've got the Bayonetta witch time thing. When you dodge attacks at the right time, you can time flash guards to get a couple critical hits in. After you do one of those, I'm kind of all over the place here, but it's Ys 8's crowning achievement is it's just a really fast, buttery smooth action RPG that feels great to play. For me, where it really faltered was in the story and localization. Now, I know that I pay more attention to localization than probably your average person does, but I think that games should be held to a high standard in terms of writing. And if especially if the writing in Japanese is sufficiently high caliber, there's no reason why we should be getting a vastly inferior product in the English release. Now, I don't speak Japanese super fluently. I speak it, decently well. So I've looked at some of the dialogue from Ys 8's Japanese version, and I know that I've seen indications of certain characters having particular accents. There are these elemental fairies that Donna finds in her sections of the game, and they have really obvious vocal tics or accents or other features that sort of indicate a particular type of feeling, mood, personality, nuance, whatever you want to call it. And I don't see that represented in an English version at all.
No.
That's not a really...
Sorry,
right?
I never would have picked up on that. Yeah, that's news to me. I mean, I did a bit of digging around while I was reviewing it because I could immediately tell that something was off. It's quite funny that when I reviewed it, I thought it was quite funny we've reached similar conclusions because you've played every Ys game and most Falcom games, I would assume, and I've played 2. And I still notice the differences in between Origin and 8, which are the 2 that I've played. And that was just it felt completely different story-wise, the way it was delivered. I know Origin is a prequel to the entire series anyway, and is more tied into 1 and 2 than in the rest of the series, potentially. But there were definitely things that were missing. So, even the tics and the accents is something that I never would have picked up on. But there were phrases that characters would say that would be far too kind of colloquial or modern that wouldn't be used, I think. I don't remember them being used in Origin. Yeah. It just felt really out of place. And I think both of us referred to the same screenshot in our review where Sahad likes to express his bodily functions quite often, and it's not something that I want.
It feels really forced. Even if they mentioned it in Japanese, I don't like the way that they presented it in the English text. A lot of this just feels really flat to me. There's no. I use the word finesse a lot because I think it's a useful word to capture sort of if writing has any sense of elegance, or if the person who's doing the writing understands how to play with words or make characters have subtlety or nuance in the way that they say things. There's no subtlety or nuance in Ys 8's script. It's just a lot of this is the tree that we need to go and find. Okay, everyone, are we ready? Let's try various things to prepare ourselves for fighting the enemies that we need to fight. Let's explore the island. It's just, yeah, does it get the point across? Duh. Do I understand what's happening in the story? Yes. But I don't feel anything in terms of, I don't feel a connection to the characters, and I don't feel the story it's not being presented to me in a compelling way. It's just very matter of fact, very flat writing all the way through. And I really think that hampered the experience a lot because the story it's fine. And I think by the time you get to the end of it, if you take a step back and you look at where it goes, you're okay, this is actually a relatively genre standard story, but it is still kind of interesting, and some of its twists and some of the characters have reasonably interesting backstories, but the way that it's said to you, you know what I mean? It's you get an exciting
Mhm,
story
I
and
do.
it's told to you in such plain speech that you can't help but be like, it's like somebody who's really bad at storytelling trying to tell you a story.
Hmm.
So, so that's kind of the takeaway there that I had with it. Otherwise, I thought that the game was good overall, especially in terms of the exploration of the island, which I think,
Yeah.
yeah, you had similar thoughts on that, Alana.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, again, having only played Origin, where you're limited to the single tower, having an entire island to explore, it was so much bigger than I thought it was going to be as well. So I've obviously got a rough idea of what these games are about, but Lacrimosa of Dana kind of threw everything out of the water and just went, look, here you go. Here's an island on the site, like the size of an entire continent of Xenoblade Chronicles X, to refer back to the previous discussion, and just go, oh, look, have a little look around and see what you can do and loot some things and everything. But I really love, it's Isle of Siren, isn't it? Or Siren or something like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's
Siren.
just, yeah. So there is so much to do and so much to look at. Like, I mean, you spend most of the game looking for, or parts of the game looking for fellow shipmates, or crew members that have been shipwrecked along with you, and finding them is an absolute delight because they're just hidden in some bizarre places, or like you're picking up items. I just
Right.
really love, yeah.
And then each of the people that you rescue, because the premise of the game is the main character Adol is shipwrecked on this deserted island. You don't have a way to get off because of various story reasons. You're trapped on that island, so you guys have to make a village and survive. This being a JRPG, it's not quite as like fixated on the minutia of how are we going to purify our water source and blah 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 blah. But you do have to bring people back to your village, and each of them more or less operates a facility of some kind. Like you rescue one person who's a tailor, and she can make you some armor for your characters. You rescue somebody who's a blacksmith, so obviously they work on your weapons. People who can cook things. There's one person who she's a trader, so the fact that you don't have money on the island means that you're just trading resources. Like here's 4 monster claws in exchange for some accessory or whatever. So every person that you rescue is a named NPC with their own personality, backstory, etc. And then they each also have their own essential function within the village. So it very much feels like a lighter scale, either Skies of Arcadia base building thing or Suikoden building your castle. It's not quite as in depth as either of those because I think that there's a little bit more, especially in Suikoden. There are so many characters and so many facilities, and this doesn't have a lot of superfluous stuff beyond just the basic. Like essentially you need an armor maker and a medicine maker and stuff. So it's not like you can find somebody who will help you put on plays or whatever, a la Suikoden, but it is still I think a lot of fun to try and find all those people, and there aren't a huge amount of them. They're like 20 something.
Yeah.
But it's worth exploring to find them because I think that adds a lot to the game because you take ownership of the village. It becomes something that you're building up on your own, and you don't have to do that as part of the story. There are some people who join regardless, but a lot of it is like when you find them, you feel like, oh man, I did it. I found this person, and that's going to enrich my gameplay experience because of X, Y, or Z. So exploration is a huge thing, I think, in this game.
Definitely more than previous ones, because I suppose Adol being an adventurer, it's kind of a crucial part. So it's the one that made me feel most like an adventurer.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
I watched a couple gameplay videos of it, and I was actually a little intrigued watching it. I got a little bit of a Xenoblade vibe. I am a slut for exploration in video games. Like, meaningful exploration is one of the things I crave in a video game. Like, and give me reasons to go around and look for things, and entice me with fun things to find.
Right, and crucially, I think for me, so I like exploration too, but I like exploration of handcrafted environments where there are meaningful spots.
Yep.
I don't like procedurally generated exploration, or it's just like, I don't know, you found a cave that has, one of 5 randomly generated layouts and then a random chest at the end. No, that doesn't work for me. I want something like Ys 8 where they've carefully crafted every single environment by hand, and there are reasons to go into the deep corners because you find here's a vista and you've recorded that vista in your sightseeing log kind of thing, or here's a chest that gives you an accessory that is really going to help you through the next area, and if you wouldn't have gone that way, you wouldn't have found it. And the island isn't so large that it's overwhelming. Like, it's pretty clear whenever there's a branching path or something. It's like, okay, it does the Metroidvania thing in that you might see something that you can't reach because you need a double jump, or maybe you need something that lets you breathe underwater to get through that area. So you mentally make a note of it, and there's convenient fast travel to get around and stuff. So it does a really good job of enticing you to explore off the beaten path and giving you reasons to go back to old areas. And there's also, for me, this was really nice. There's an exploration completion percentage for each area that has like amount explored, number of chests found, and then number of harvesting points found. So I became obsessed with getting 100% of everything, and I did it for the entire game. 100%, all areas, all chests, everything. So, and I didn't feel like it was an overwhelming task either, because it took some work, but it wasn't like, oh my God, it's going to take me weeks and I can't possibly keep track of all this stuff. The fact that they make it manageable in these small chunks, area by area, and each area being unique, I felt made it a lot easier to accomplish that task. So if you're the type of person who likes exploration, Ys 8 is the one to get in the series. Also, combat's fun.
The PC version was delayed slightly, right?
Yeah.
We don't know how long at this point. They needed to, I guess it wasn't running well enough, so they need to work on it.
I heard from some people who had been playing the PC version, either, I don't know if they were reviewing or if it was just like a pre-release beta test type thing, there were some serious issues with like crashing and like Caitlin said, just frame rate issues and that kind of thing. So
that's a shame. I would probably, I kind of want to play it, and I'd probably do it on PC if I could. So
yeah.
I might check it out. That might be like a game down the line on a Steam sale if it ever releases for PC. That might be a game like down the line that I might pick up.
Right, and the nice thing is that you don't need to have played any other Ys game, because even though they are technically all connected, each one stands as its own sort of adventure, like standalone travelogue of add-alls. So you don't have to worry too much about playing.
My only experience with the series was the little bit of Origins that I played. I got maybe halfway through the one campaign. And I liked it, but it didn't hold my attention. But I think I said it last time. If I had grown up with that instead of Mega Man, I'd probably be super into the series. Like there just came a moment in my life where I gravitated toward like 2D side scrollers like Mega Man or Castlevania. But I can see that Ys would have fit a nice place in my heart if I had played it a little bit younger, I think.
Yeah.
But cool. Looking at ye old schedule here, I think the only other thing we had was Derek, you played Etrian Odyssey. I'm going to take a guess. 5?
That's the one!
Woo! All right!
So during the Nintendo Direct that we recently had, where they talked about Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Octopath Traveler, they also surprise released a demo for Etrian Odyssey 5, and it went up right after the broadcast. So that was a nice surprise as well. I'm a fan of the Etrian Odyssey series. I actually own all of them, and I realized at one point back when Etrian Odyssey Untold 2 came out, which was a remake of Etrian Odyssey 2 on DS, that I had all of them, including Mystery Dungeon, and I even had all of the versions that came with like the CD soundtracks, and then I had the pre-order art book that came with, I think 3 was the one. And I was like, do I really have all this series? Because I've never beaten one. Not one. And I laid it all out, and I took this picture of it, and I was just like, oh my God, I have this enormous Etrian Odyssey collection, and yet I have never managed to finish one all the way. That being said, I really like the series a lot, because I think that it marries some of the more streamlined aspects of JRPG design that I like with the freedom of a first-person dungeon crawler. And they give you so much flexibility in terms of creating character classes and character builds and all that kind of stuff. So just, I guess, quick preface, if you're not familiar with Etrian Odyssey, these are all first-person dungeon crawlers on the DS at first, and then they moved to 3DS. On the bottom screen of the DS, you draw your map for each labyrinth as you're exploring. Now, for me, when I first heard that, I was like, that sounds interesting, but also kind of cumbersome. And it kind of is cumbersome sometimes, but over the years, they've made some improvements where you can have it auto-map, like, if you're walking, it'll map the floor or any walls that you're moving along. And if you've played Persona Q, the spin-off with the Persona 3 and 4 cast on 3DS, that runs in the same engine. So if you're familiar with that, you'd be familiar with what Etrian Odyssey presents to you right out of the gate. So Etrian Odyssey 5 is obviously the latest in the series, and they made some adjustments, as they always do with every entry in the game. It's still the same core idea of you make a party of 5 adventurers, and you get to totally choose what character classes they are, name, gender, etc. And you just go into this labyrinth. And there's a story, but it's like fairly minimal. It's the idea is just you're exploring this labyrinth, and at the top of it is Yggdrasil, usually like the Tree of Life and whatever, depending on what mythology we're drawing upon here. and you're just trying to get there because that's what explorers do, right? So you form your party and you just jump into it. Etrian Odyssey 5's differences stem from the fact that for the first time they've separated races and classes. Normally previously it was just you would select your classes and that was it. Sometimes there was a subclass system of some kind. But this time we have races, which are a separate thing. So you have like basically more or less you have like humans, elves, gnomes, and rabbit people, Viera kind of. And each of them has their own distinct available classes that the other classes don't initially have access to. There is a way to gain access to them later. But so as a human, you could be like a pugilist. But which, by the way, the Etrian Odyssey classes are different in every game. And they're really unique, I think, as far as RPG character classes go, because they have a lot of unpredictable sort of configurations. For example, in this one, pugilist is a class, so they're a hand-to-hand fighter, but they're more of a like enemy debuffer. They can do punches that will bind parts of enemies, and binding is a big part of the Etrian Odyssey battle system. So you can like bind their heads so they can't use special abilities involving heads. So think magical incantations, or maybe if they have a horn, they can't use their horn. Or you can bind their arms, so if they're enemies that want to swing at you with a weapon, or if they have some kind of like a sharp hand, like I'm thinking a mantis or something like that, they can't use those skills. So pugilist in this case, you would think they'd just be like a damager, but they do other stuff. Also things like harbinger is one of them. They use a scythe to do other kind of interesting things to enemies. Or you have the shaman, who's one of the gnome classes, and they can pray to their gods to unleash various beneficial effects. So it's not just straightforward like, swordsman or paladin or whatever. They all do sort of unique, weird things. So in this one, I'm meandering away from my point here, but in this one you have races that are separate from the actual character classes. So if you're a human, then you might have access to something like fishing. And most of the character classes, most of the race skills have to do with exploration. There's a much heavier focus this time on having exploration-minded skills. So to me, it calls back almost to a Dungeons and Dragons sort of thing, where you want to have somebody in your party like the gnome type people. Early on, they can learn animal care. And if you're in a dungeon, you might need to more or less like make a roll, not a roll because they don't have dice rolls, but like you might encounter a situation that requires handling an animal. For instance, early on in the first labyrinth, there's like a guard who's looking for a bunch of chickens that went roaming free that he was supposed to be watching. If you have somebody with animal handling, you can catch all the chickens and then use it to turn in a quest, and get a reward for it. Whereas if you don't have that, you might have more trouble. Like they might run away from you, or maybe an enemy will pounce on you while you're trying to get the chicken. So it encourages like this meld of, when I say role playing, I mean like, narrative building in terms of how you create your party, and also just the mechanics of exploration, dungeoneering, battling, that sort of thing. So I'm getting off topic here, but Etrian Odyssey 5 brings some interesting revisions to the formula, and I think that people who played previous games are going to like what they did here. It certainly feels a lot more in the spirit of creating a story than previous games have. So I like the demo so far. You can level your characters up to level 10 max in it, and you can transfer everything over to the full version when that releases in October. So I would recommend giving it a try if you haven't played the series before. Demo's free.
I always judge a game based on whether or not it has a necromancer, and I believe this game has a necromancer.
It does. It has a necromancer class, and they use coffins as weapons, and their whole thing is they summon wraiths that they can like blow up to do various effects on enemies, or you can sacrifice a wraith to heal your party. So they're almost like a combo healer. It's weird.
Wow, that's really interesting. That's a really nice slice of the class system. So have you got access to all of the classes in the demo, or just kind of a select?
Yep, you have the whole thing. It's more or less it's just the full game, but you only have access to so far into the first labyrinth, like the third floor or so.
Oh, wow.
Are you gonna beat this one, Derek?
I don't know, man. See, that's the thing. I like this series a lot. I always get really into it, but I think there comes a point in every Etrian Odyssey game where I get kind of overwhelmed with choice. Because every character has their own skill tree, and you're getting skill points that you're pumping into it. In Etrian Odyssey 5, those skill trees are actually quite a bit condensed. So I think that maybe I won't freak out quite as much this time about having to build the perfect characters. So, maybe I'll beat this one. I got really far into 4. I think I got to like the 5th labyrinth, and maybe there are only 6 or so. However, cool trivia about Etrian Odyssey 4 is we, RPG Fan, are actually in the game. They ran a promotion for a
We
while.
are.
Yeah, we are. There is an NPC. I think you have to use a QR code to access a bunch of quests, and they're given to you by NPCs that are named after a bunch of like gaming publications. And our character's name, if I remember correctly, is like Green Shield with an E, Greene, Shield.
Oh,
We-
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet.
yeah,
Cute.
we have a little quest in there that's themed after us because we talked to Atlas about getting it in there. So check it out. Look for it. I'll have to find a link or something and show you guys. But yeah, I think Entry in Odyssey 5 is a good improvement, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Well, now the internet can call out our journalistic integrity for all they want and say that we are nothing but shills for the Etrian Odyssey people. I guess I'll go download the demo. It can't hurt to give it a try.
Yeah, it's free.
I go back to like my first experience with a first-person dungeon crawler. I think it was Shining in the Dark for like the Sega Genesis.
Oh yeah,
remember-
Shining in the Dark.
Wow.
Oh my God, getting my ass kicked by that goddamn game. Like
Wow,
just
that's awesome.
wrecked. Like, yeah. So yeah, I think the only other thing that I had to talk about was my XCOM 2 War of the Chosen review should be going up in a couple of days. Might be up already by the time we get this out. I like that game a lot. They added a lot of really cool stuff to it. The expansion is really, really good. XCOM 2 is one of the best games I've ever played until it very suddenly isn't. It is a little buggy. There are some issues with logic and pathfinding that can really screw you over. And I put in my review, I don't know how anyone could play that game Iron Man, because with one save and no ability to save scum, I think you're asking for problems with that game. Like there was a moment right before we started recording where the new enemy type, the zombie-like Lost, which yes, they put a damn zombie class into the game, but it actually works really, really well. That zombie class is supposed to attack indiscriminately anybody on the battlefield, and every once in a while, the game just gets really screwy with whether or not the aliens are going to be attacked by them or whether the Lost can see the aliens. And that just created a whole problem on a mission I was playing right before the show. So XCOM 2 is phenomenal. War of the Chosen is fantastic. I recommend it to everybody, but seriously, save scum that game. Like, just like if you make a bad decision, live with it. And I got, nobody tell Jackie. I got her killed on a mission. She served her purpose. She needed to take out the Chosen, the titular villain enemies that are very much modeled after the Shadow of Mordor Nemesis system. She was going to die anyway, and I had her take the shot to end him, but she died on the next turn. And I feel very, very bad about that, but
Wow, that's all your marriage vows are worth to you, Rob?
I had to live with the mistake. But there every once in a while that game just feels like it's broken. I don't like the way XCOM handles enemy, like the way you encounter an enemy and they get to move and grab cover. It can get really screwy when you're fighting one group of enemies and then you just move one square too far and you activate another whole group of enemies. I really think it's dog shit and they need to fix it. Like it just can screw you over so bad, and it doesn't feel right. It feels very glitchy. It feels very wrong, and I didn't have any issues with that on this campaign in the 30 hours I put into this campaign, and then all of a sudden, like 3 missions in a row, it just became an issue. So,
Yikes.
yeah, it's still a lot of fun though. I just wish Firaxis was a little bit more polished with their games. Just a little bit. Polish is so important. And I just really wish.
Yeah, just so you don't have to save every 5 minutes. Like that's enough of a ugh.
Yeah, that's how I feel with XCOM 2 is I have to save a lot. And I was telling Caitlin before we started, like, I've gotten to the point in my gaming where if a game gets too trial and error, I just refuse to play it. Like, I was having that with the Dishonored DLC, and then I was having that with XCOM 2 this morning. Like, it just wasn't a good weekend of gaming. It was just like a very frustrating,
No.
like nails on a chalkboard. Like, okay, this is getting annoying. I'm gonna go back to Metroid.
So this is once again extremely tangential, but I was thinking about how you were just saying trial and error stuff in games. I remember that you sort of bounced off of, what was it, Divinity? Is that the one that you tried to play with Steven?
Yeah, and Divinity 2 just came out, and everybody seems to be absolutely in love with it.
Okay.
That game is like calculus.
Yeah.
No, thank you. But that reminded me of you played Pillars of Eternity, right?
Yep, I tried that one too.
Did you feel the same about that?
I think I just have come to terms with the fact that I really don't like traditional CRPGs. I didn't like Wasteland 2. I didn't like Pillars of it. I like Pillars of Eternity, but I don't like the way it plays. And I bounced right the hell off Divinity, even though I think that was closer to what I was looking for. Each one of those games had very specific flaws. Wasteland 2's random number generator is actually run by the devil, and that got very annoying to constantly miss 95% chances over and over again.
The Final Fantasy Tactics School of Accuracy hit calculation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pillars of Eternity is just too much. Like, when you get a new character class in that game, like I got the Chanter, and I'm like, I don't know what any of these skills do, and he has 12 of them, and now I have to read what each one of these is. Nope. I turned right the hell off that. Like that's that. I think that's what you were talking about a second ago, Derek, with like character building in Etrian Odyssey. Like, if I'm if I'm an hour into your game and you just threw all of this stuff at me, there are people that are really going to thrive with that. I am not one of them.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I get overwhelmed by choice, especially if those choices are permanent and I can't go back and undo them. Like, as far as I know, most Etrian Odyssey games let you take a hit and like you can reduce your character by 5 levels to reset your skill point allocation. But even that usually is a little bit too much for me to deal with, because it's like I don't want to totally have one of my characters fall behind when I'm in a dungeon while everybody else is continuing to level, and like, what if I reset them and then I want to do something else with a different character to complement that? So yeah, which is why I appreciated that Etrian Odyssey 5 feels a little bit more streamlined, because characters have less battle actions as far as I can tell in this one, and more skills having to do with the exploration aspect of it. So I don't feel quite as bad putting their points into action skills, because it's like, okay, I have a clearer idea of what I want to do. Yeah, but yeah, like you said, there are people who just love that, but I get overwhelmed. So
I think XCOM 2 actually does a very good job of limiting your choice at the beginning of the game and then just opening up more and more. And then when you replay the campaign, you can choose to open things up from the very beginning, because you're like, okay, I have a firm grasp of everything that's going on. I want to play it again, but I don't want all of those safeguards in place. I think that's the right way to go. With Divinity Original Sin, the problem is that game's difficulty curve is just a 30-foot wall when you start. Like, it is just one of the most prohibitively difficult games I've ever played, where when you first leave the first town, if you do not take these enemy encounters on in the correct order, you just won't win. And I just, that it goes against everything about me as a gamer. Like, I don't like walking into a no-win scenario. Like, that drives me nuts. And so everybody is talking a lot about Divinity 2. If Steven is willing to play with me, I will probably play with him for a little bit. But the idea of playing that game single player and managing 4 characters of like all of their character growth, all of their inventories, again, some people really, really like that. I just find that way too fiddly. And I've just come to terms with the fact I don't do well with that type of game. I just don't.
Neither do I. I get that.
Yeah, I tried, man. I really tried.
Well, if you're like me, which I've never played Pillars of Eternity, but another reason why I was thinking of it is because I've been reading Jason Schreier's new book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. And if you don't know, Jason Schreier's one of the guys who writes for Kotaku, and he put out his first book. It just came out like a week ago or so, and it tells a bunch of game development stories about what happened behind the scenes with so many of these games, and really calls to light the serious problem in the industry with crunch, and how desperately people are working overtime and these really long hours just to make games come together. And the fact that they come together at all is something of a miracle. It's something that I have personally experienced in my albeit limited time working for a game publisher. When I was doing that localization job, I was working like 10, 12-hour days, and I just felt like, because I wanted to keep a certain standard of quality while maintaining that sort of like expected level of output. Anyway, crunch is a real problem in the industry. But I was just going to say, if you're interested in reading about how a lot of these games are made, Pillars of Eternity being one of them, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels is a really, really illuminating look into those processes. So I would say check it out if you're interested in those games from a behind-the-scenes perspective.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sure Steven will get me involved in Divinity. And I'll admit, when we played Divinity Original Sin, the console version at E3 together, that was the right way to play that game. Like us sitting on a couch. Yeah, well, us sitting on a couch right next to each other and playing it co-op.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant.
Like get a few beers, a couple of scotches, and a pizza, and like that would be amazing. But my lifestyle just isn't built around that anymore. So like, you know, trying to find time to play with people online, especially if we're in different time zones, that's really, really tough. And I just, you know, I wish I could go back to college with Divinity, because I have a group of friends that I think we would have played the ever-loving crap out of that game. Because that way we could have helped each other with like the more tedious parts. Like I made Steven in charge of inventory management. I said, you're in charge of inventory. I don't want to deal with this. Like, I hate this. And he was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And he's like, you know, organizing everything by color because he's just being Steven. And like, that's
Yeah.
but that was, he was able to pick up the slack on something I didn't want to do in the game. And I just am really getting, I know streamlining has become a 4-letter word in video games and people really don't like it. The more you can streamline a game for me these days, the better I feel. Like if you just, remember when I fired up Tales of Cold Steel and I just looked at like all the menus and all the different things and I just kind of said, nope.
That's not even that complex though.
But it was still too much. It was still.
I'm like, then you should stay away from Tales in the Sky because it's more complex.
Yeah, I think there's a right way and a wrong way to do that. And if a game hits me with that too fast, like Pillars did with, 12 new skills for this one character I just picked up, and I have no idea how to use them properly in battle, that just sucks. I don't want to do that. So.
I feel you.
Yep.
Mm.
Okay, we've talked about a lot of stuff. I think we're done. Are we done?
I think we're done.
I think we're done. Okay, so thank you everybody for listening to the podcast. Alana, did you have fun on your first episode of Random Encounter?
I'll be back, so take that as you will.
Jesus,
I can't wait.
That was intimidating.
I like it.
I felt like it came across really intimidating then. I'm very sorry.
No. It's positive. I'm totally on board with that. That way, when everybody says we suck, I can just direct them to the Brit. She'll just down on them. Just be too much. So yeah, we have a lot of games to look forward to going forward. I should have more free time to get more recordings out there. Again, apologies to our listeners. You've never lived until you've seen the opening of a boarding school experience, and it's just like.
Well, if that's living, I'm happy to stay dead.
Yeah, 2.5 weeks of just insanity, but then everything's fine. So
right. Well, maybe one of these days soon we'll hop on and make a spoiler cast for Danganronpa V3. So let us know if that sounds like something you want to hear.
That could be really fun. That could be really, really fun. All right, everybody. For Derek, Caitlin, and Alana, we will see you all later.
Bye.
Cheers.
See you.